To understand the darkness that would later engulf Europe, a darkness so profound it reshaped the world, we must look back to a seemingly unremarkable small Austrian town, Braunau am Inn, a place that history would forever remember. It was here, in this quiet corner of Austria, that Adolf Hitler was born in 1889. A seemingly ordinary event that would have extraordinary consequences. His early life, however, was far from idyllic, marked by family tragedy and loss that would deeply affect him. He grew up under the shadow of a strict, domineering father, a figure who instilled both fear and resentment. Young Adolf, seeking escape from his harsh reality, dreamed of becoming an artist, finding solace in the world of art and creativity. But his artistic ambitions were brutally crushed by repeated rejection from Vienna's prestigious Academy of Fine Arts, a devastating blow to his aspirations. Alone in Vienna, adrift and without direction, he struggled in poverty, facing hardship and despair. He was forced to live in shelters and sell meager sketches on the streets, desperately trying to survive in the harsh urban landscape. The city itself was a vibrant melting pot of cultures, a place of both opportunity and intense competition. But beneath the surface, Vienna was also a breeding ground of political tension, and a place where anti-Semitism was on the rise, poisoning the atmosphere. Hitler, already frustrated and increasingly isolated, found himself vulnerable to these dark currents. He began absorbing radical ideas, fueled by populist pamphlets and fiery speeches that preyed on fear and resentment. Instead of honestly confronting his own failures and shortcomings, a dangerous pattern began to emerge. He desperately looked for scapegoats to blame for his misfortunes, seeking someone else to carry the burden of his failures. Vienna's volatile political climate conveniently offered him a readily available target: the Jewish community, who were already facing prejudice and discrimination. He began to adopt and internalize deeply anti-Semitic beliefs, embracing the hateful rhetoric that surrounded him. He started blaming Jews for his personal misfortunes, and for all the perceived problems plaguing the city, falling prey to dangerous and unfounded accusations. These formative years of failure, isolation, and growing resentment would have a profound and lasting impact. They planted the insidious seeds of a monstrous hatred that would eventually blossom into unimaginable horrors. The bitterness of the failed artist, festering and unaddressed, was about to be unleashed upon the world. It would soon become a driving force, a destructive energy that would reshape the course of history in the most devastating way. His worldview hardened into a rigid and unyielding ideology, fueled by anger and a thirst for power. It was shaped by his personal disappointments and the toxic, hateful ideas that were swirling around him in the turbulent streets of Vienna. The stage was now set for a dangerous and irreversible transformation, a metamorphosis from a frustrated young man into a figure of unimaginable evil. Hitler's personal struggles became inextricably intertwined with a growing and virulent ideology of hate, a dangerous combination that would have catastrophic consequences. The darkness that began in the shadows of Vienna, nurtured by resentment and prejudice, was about to spread. It would soon spread far beyond the city's borders, engulfing Europe and casting a long shadow over the entire world. The seeds of hatred were sown in those early years, carefully cultivated in the fertile ground of despair and disillusionment. They were sown long before Adolf Hitler stepped onto the world stage, long before he became the infamous dictator. This is where the story truly begins, the origin of a tragedy that would forever scar humanity. In 1918, Germany emerged from World War I, a conflict that had reshaped the world and left deep scars on the German psyche. Defeated and humiliated, the nation faced a bleak future, its spirit crushed by years of relentless warfare and immense loss. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, forced Germany to confront the harsh realities of its defeat. It had to accept blame for starting the war, lose significant territory, including valuable industrial regions, and pay crippling reparations to the Allied powers, a financial burden that would cripple its economy for years to come. The economy collapsed under the weight of these demands. Hyperinflation wiped out savings, rendering the German currency worthless and destroying the financial security of millions. Poverty spread like wildfire, leaving countless families struggling to survive in a nation teetering on the brink of chaos. The new Weimar Republic, a democratic government, was born in defeat and economic turmoil, and many Germans, yearning for the stability of the past, never fully accepted it, viewing it as a symbol of their national humiliation. People were desperate, angry, fueled by resentment and a sense of injustice, and searching for someone to blame for their suffering and the perceived betrayal of their nation. The stab-in-the-back myth took hold, the insidious idea that Germany was not defeated on the battlefield, but betrayed from within by subversive elements, not defeated in battle, a comforting lie that allowed many to avoid confronting the reality of their military failure. Hitler and many others clung to this lie, exploiting it for their own political gain, refusing to accept military defeat, and instead promoting a narrative of victimhood and resentment. The myth conveniently blamed politicians, particularly those associated with the Weimar government, especially those who signed the armistice, branding them as November criminals who had betrayed the nation, and increasingly Jews, who were falsely accused of undermining the war effort and profiting from Germany's misfortune. This toxic environment of humiliation and despair, fueled by economic hardship and political instability, was fertile ground for radical ideas and extremist ideologies to take root and flourish. Extreme political movements, both from the left and the right, gained traction, capitalizing on the widespread discontent and disillusionment. Promising to restore Germany's pride, its former glory, and its rightful place among the nations of the world. The Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, skillfully exploited these resentments, offering a seductive vision of national renewal and strength. Offering simple answers to complex problems, scapegoating minorities, and promising a return to order and stability, the stage was set, the conditions were ripe for a dangerous new leader, fueled by hatred and ambition, to emerge and seize power. The wounds of war and economic collapse, still fresh and raw, would soon be weaponized by those seeking to manipulate the masses and consolidate their control. Hitler's message, though filled with hate and lies, resonated deeply with those who felt betrayed and powerless, offering them a sense of belonging and purpose. The myth of betrayal, amplified by relentless propaganda, became a rallying cry for revenge, a justification for violence and oppression. The seeds of hatred sown in the fertile ground of economic hardship and national humiliation were now ready to take root, threatening to poison the very soul of Germany. Germany's pain, its anger, its resentment, would soon be channeled into a systematic campaign of blame and persecution, targeting vulnerable minorities and silencing dissenting voices. The darkness was gathering, slowly but inexorably. The consequences, unseen by many at the time, would be catastrophic, not only for Germany but for the entire world. The world was about to change forever, plunged into an era of unprecedented violence and destruction. Hitler's hatred was not new, it drew on centuries of European antisemitism. Jews had long been scapegoated, segregated, and falsely accused. In the 19th and 20th centuries, old religious prejudice evolved into racist pseudoscience. Jews were now seen as a separate, inferior race, blamed for society's ills. Hitler eagerly absorbed these ideas, finding in them a twisted explanation for his failures. Conspiracy theories like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion fueled paranoia and hate. These beliefs gave Hitler a framework for his ideology. Personal bitterness became a political mission. The foundation for future atrocities was laid. After the war, Hitler found purpose as a political agitator in Munich. He joined the German Workers' Party, soon transforming it into the Nazi Party. Central to his message was the stab-in-the-back myth, blaming Jews and politicians for Germany's defeat. Hitler accused Jewish bankers, communists, and business owners of orchestrating Germany's collapse. This lie resonated with a population desperate for answers. Jews became the perfect scapegoat, an easy target for centuries-old prejudice. Hitler connected every German hardship to a supposed Jewish conspiracy. Economic ruin, unemployment, and political chaos were all blamed on Jews. By offering a simple enemy, Hitler united his followers in hate. The groundwork for future violence was laid. The path to catastrophe was set. Hitler's rise to power was significantly fueled by his insidious mastery of propaganda, a tool he wielded with chilling effectiveness. He understood the power of persuasion and manipulation. He skillfully transformed the Nazi Party from a fringe group, initially dismissed by many, into a mass movement, captivating the hearts and minds of millions through powerful speeches, carefully orchestrated spectacles, and the promise of a better future. His rallies were meticulously theatrical, carefully designed to stir intense emotion, blind faith, and unwavering loyalty among his followers. The Nazis systematically used newspapers, controlling the narrative and shaping public opinion. Posters plastered across cities and towns, and radio broadcasts reaching every corner of the nation to relentlessly spread their distorted message. Vile anti-Semitic cartoons and carefully crafted slogans systematically dehumanized Jewish people, insidiously making hatred and prejudice seem not only acceptable, but normal and even justified. Massive rallies and meticulously organized parades filled with symbols and pageantry created a false sense of national unity, strength, and unwavering power. The propaganda was relentless, repeating the same carefully constructed lies over and over, until they were ingrained in the public consciousness and became accepted as truth. Jewish people were consistently depicted as monsters, evil and subhuman, and falsely blamed for every societal problem, from economic woes to political instability. This pervasive and insidious campaign of hate made it increasingly easier for ordinary people, otherwise decent individuals, to passively accept discrimination, segregation, and ultimately, horrific acts of violence against their Jewish neighbors. Hitler and Goebbels chillingly understood that a big lie, a falsehood of immense proportions, told often enough and with sufficient conviction, would eventually be believed by the masses. The Nazi propaganda machine, operating with ruthless efficiency, effectively created an alternate reality divorced from truth and reason. The psychological groundwork for the horrors of genocide was systematically being laid, brick by calculated brick. The already blurred line between hateful words and violent actions was rapidly disappearing altogether. Hatred, once a fringe sentiment, was now enshrined as official national policy, sanctioned by the state. The consequences of this calculated campaign of hate and deception would be unimaginably deadly, leading to the systematic murder of millions. When Hitler seized power in 1933, anti-Semitic words became law. The Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of citizenship and rights, isolating them from society. Jewish businesses were seized, children expelled from schools, and families forced into poverty. Kristallnacht in 1938 marked a shift to open violence. Synagogues burned, homes destroyed, thousands arrested. The world watched, but did little. With World War II, Nazi control spread, and the persecution escalated. The final solution was formalized, the systematic murder of millions. The path from hate to genocide was complete. The machinery of death was set in motion. The consequences of unchecked hatred became horrifyingly real. The story of Hitler's hatred is a warning for today. It began with words, prejudice, lies, and scapegoating. Propaganda turned neighbors into enemies. When hatred goes unchallenged, evil grows. The Holocaust was not inevitable. It was the result of choices. We must recognize the warning signs: scapegoating, conspiracy theories, and dehumanization. Protecting democracy and human rights is essential. Remembering the past honors the victims and safeguards the future. We must speak out against hatred wherever it appears. This is not just history. It is our responsibility.